What I never told my husband in 40 years of marriage. We were married for 40 years, and in all that time, I never told him. Not once. Not even when he asked me point blank, "Is there something you're not telling me?" I smiled. I shook my head. And I lied. We met when I was 21. He was 23. He had a crooked grin and a beat-up car. I was wearing my mother's heels and pretending I knew what I wanted. We got married a year later. Everyone said we were rushing. Maybe we were. But when you're that young, love feels like a race you have to win before it disappears. And I did love him. Still do. But I brought something into our marriage. Something I buried so deep I almost forgot it was there. Almost. I've spent decades being the good wife, the hostess, the mother, the cleaner of messes, the keeper of peace, and under all that smiling and small talk was a secret. It wasn't an affair. It wasn't a hidden bank account or a second life. It was a memory. One I couldn't share. Because I was afraid, terrified, that if I did, he'd look at me differently. And I couldn't bear that. It happened when I was 19. Before I met him. I was in college, alone in a city I didn't know, trying to act older than I was. One night, a man I trusted did something I didn't consent to, and I never told a soul. Not my parents, not my friends, not even my diary. I blamed myself. I was wearing a short skirt. I'd had 2 glasses of wine. I laughed at his jokes. I didn't scream. So I convinced myself it wasn't worth bringing up. Wasn't worth the shame. Wasn't worth ruining my life over. But it did ruin parts of me. It made me flinch when he touched me a certain way. It made me freeze when he kissed me too suddenly. He'd ask what was wrong, and I'd say, "Nothing. Just tired." I was always tired. Not because of him, but because I was living 2 lives. The woman he thought he married. And the one still haunted by a night she refused to remember. When I turned 60, I started therapy. I told myself it was just to deal with aging. But the truth clawed its way out in session 3. I said it out loud for the first time. I think I was assaulted. And my therapist just nodded and said, "You know you were." I wept for 3 days straight, and then I made the scariest decision of my life. I told him. I expected him to be angry, to question why I waited 40 years, to ask what else I hadn't told him. But he just reached for my hand, and he said, "I'm so sorry that happened to you." And then he said, "I wish you'd never had to carry that alone." We sat in silence after that. Not the awkward kind, the kind that wraps around you like a blanket and says, "You are safe." Something shifted in our marriage that day. I didn't realize how many walls I'd built until they started falling. We were closer, physically, emotionally. I could finally breathe. And he said, "You've always been strong, but now I see how strong." I spent 40 years believing the lie that some truths are better left unsaid. I told myself I was protecting him, protecting us. But really I was protecting the pain, keeping it locked up in the dark where it couldn't breathe, and neither could I. But here's what I know now. Silence can protect you, but it can also free you. Secrets don't make us safer. They just build walls so high, even love can't climb over them. And you don't have to carry your past like a punishment. You have nothing to feel shameful about. You don't have to wear your shame like skin. You can speak. You can cry. You can take your truth and hold it out like a lantern and watch how it lights the way forward. Because healing doesn't come all at once. It comes in pieces, in quiet moments, in deep exhales, and in the soft, steady voice inside you that whispers, "It's time. Time to come home to yourself. Time to forgive what you couldn't control. Time to stop surviving and start living." Telling your truth won't erase the past, but it might just rewrite your future. It might just open the door to the kind of love you thought was gone, to the kind of peace you didn't think you deserved, to the kind of life that finally feels like yours. And yes, it might just bring you back to life. If you're carrying something heavy, a secret, a shame, a story no one knows, please only share it if you feel safe to do so. If you're not sure where to turn, consider talking to a therapist or someone trained to hold space with care Not everyone earns the right to your story, but you still deserve to heal. You are not broken. You are not dirty. You are not alone. If this story touched something inside you, share it with someone you trust, or leave a comment below. You never know who you might help by speaking up. And if you want more stories like this, raw, real, and redemptive, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on notifications. Because sometimes the stories we don't tell are the ones we most need to hear. You're not alone, not anymore. Thanks for watching Aged and Confused.